Area residents say it's the worst flood ever to hit the Bandera area. Rivers and streams swell to more than 100 times their original size. Suddenly, there were impassable rivers blocking all traffic on all highways into Bandera. The town isolated, accessible only by air. Emergency helicopters were called to rescue hundreds of people. The crest of the Medina River came suddenly, and for most, they barely made it out.
You feel all right?
Yeah, I'm still alive. And the water come up so fast that it locked my bathroom, shut my bathroom door, and I couldn't open it against the water. Just kept praying that God would stop the water and not let it get into my lungs.
2 persons at the Bandera camp on the river died from the flooding. At 8:30 this morning, these houses were on dry ground. When police came to evacuate them, the residents were skeptical of leaving.
I woke up about 5 o'clock and I could hear the river, but I didn't really see anything, so couldn't get out. So just went back to bed. About 8:30 the phone rang, got up, and at that time the river was out of its banks but not close to the house at all, but they told us we had to evacuate, but I wasn't too concerned about it at that time. Within 45 minutes the house was completely under.
And then down the river went refrigerators, telephone poles, and tons of other debris. By early this afternoon, the river crossing Highway 16 just this side of Bandera went down about 15 feet, and you could see some of the cars, trucks, and treetops that had been underwater for more than 6 hours. But the town remained inaccessible by road. The water was slowly going down as of late this afternoon, but residents were fearful of rumors of a second crest. As one resident said, if it should come, nothing will be able to survive it. Henry Bonilla, Channel 5 Eyewitness News in Bandera.
A civil defense spokesman said the Guadalupe River has never before risen as high. By 9 o'clock this morning in this area just west of Bandera, the water had somewhat subsided. Still, it nearly reached the tops of cars 1/2 mile off the main channel. In pre-dawn hours, local rescue teams began evacuating some residents along the river. 80-year-old Clarabelle Lovelace had crawled into a bathroom cabinet to escape what she estimates were 8-feet-high waters throughout her house.
I could tell the water was going down, and I just kept praying it'd come up to my chin. And I kept holding my head up against the ceiling of the closet.
So the water actually was up to your chin for a number of hours?
About an hour and a half, yes. And I just kept praying that God would stop the water and not let it get into my lungs.
A few miles west at Camp Bandera, residents reportedly awoke at 3:30 this morning to find their campgrounds flooded. 20 brick homes there were destroyed. And at mid-afternoon, authorities told Eyewitness News that 2 camp members were dead and 5 still were missing. It was the roar of the river at about 4:30 that awakened this group of riverside campers. A half hour later, they climbed onto the roofs of their cabins to escape waters they say crested several feet at a time. Women holding small children were helped onto tree limbs, where they stayed for more than 5 hours.
Well, we woke up and I held him and just walked down and found a tree, and a man was in a tree. And I'm so glad he's here. And he scooped me up into the tree, and he just slept. My little boy slept through the whole thing.
Masked crews plan to continue through tomorrow searching through the rubble, following reports from survivors of other possible flood victims. With just about the same speed that it rose, the river now is receding, and soon it will be back to normal. Then cleanup and repair from the damage it did can begin. Margot Spitz, Channel 5 Eyewitness.
20-inch rains overnight sent the Medina River surging out of its banks into Bandera, stranding many residents whose homes are along that river. Helicopters from the Fort Sam Houston 507th Mast Unit were requested early this morning to help pick those people off rooftops and out of trees. Newsman Roy Ibarra and I filmed these scenes aboard a chopper commanded by Chief Warrant Officer Ed Vasquez. Authorities in Bandera directed the chopper to points along the river where persons were reported stranded. Houses were flooded, many washed completely away, and residents in many cases had absolutely nowhere to go but to grab onto trees. At 9:45, Mrs. Lenore Champion was spotted on debris of what must have been what was left of her home. She waved us on, directing us to 2 children hanging on trees downstream. Their Specialist 5, Ron Talley, rode down on an electric hoist operated by Specialist 4, Arthur Barker. There they rescued June O'Driscoll. Then a more tricky maneuver was threading that cable through the tree limbs to rescue her brother, Joe. The 3 said that they had been there since 6 a.m. Then it was back to Mrs. Champion. All were taken to a rescue center in Bandera. At Camp Bandina, one woman was rescued from a tree. We landed at that camp to fly her back into Bandera. 2 others were also found there. They were less fortunate, they had drowned. Old-timers in Bandera were calling this the worst flood since 1900. As we flew around the area, we could see the river had receded, and by news time, many have returned to their homes, or what was left of them. Paul Schaefer, 4 Big News on the scene.